Hello everyone. In lecture 6.2, we are going to talk about surprise, also known as contrastive valence. So first, let's review the ITPRA theory of expectation, which we covered in our previous lecture. About the purposes of those 5 responses. Imaginative response motivates an organism to behave in ways that increase the likelihood of future beneficial outcomes. Tension response prepares an organism for an impending event by tailoring arousal and attention to match the level of uncertainty and importance of an impending outcome. Prediction response provides positive and negative inducements that encourage the formation of accurate expectations. Reaction response addresses a possible worst-case situation by generating an immediate protective response. Appraisal response provides positive and negative reinforcements related to the biological value of different final states. So this is an overview of what we talked about in the last lecture and the basic functions of the 5 responses. So to put it in plain words, when we talk about the feelings or the intuitive impression of these 5 responses, we can simply see that imaginative response indicates what do you think might happen and how do you feel about that prospect. Tension response. Are you ready for what's about to happen? How do the preparations make you feel? Prediction response. Did you place a good bet? Did you predict the outcome accurately? Are you pleased or disappointed by the accuracy of your wager? Reaction response. Assuming the worst, how have you reacted? How does this reaction make you feel? Appraisal response. Upon reflection, how do you feel about how things have turned out? So these are some simple questions or illustrations of the feelings of the intuitive ways to understand the 5 responses. This figure illustrates, this table illustrates the biological functions of these the responses. For imagination response, it provides future-oriented behavioral motivation, and it enables deferred gratification. Tension response provides optimum arousal and attention in preparation for anticipated events. Prediction response provides negative or positive reinforcement to encourage the formation of accurate expectations. Reaction response provides neurologically fast responses that assume a worst-case assessment of the outcome. And the biological function of appraisal response is to give neurologically complex assessment of the final outcome that results in negative or positive reinforcements. So so we know that these responses are categorized as pre-outcome responses and post-outcome responses, where the first 2 types of responses happens before the onset of events, and the last three responses happen after the event onset. So this figure gives an illustration of the timeline of the 5 responses. So we can see that this ITPRA theory actually orders these responses in a sequential manner. So first, far before the event happens, we already have the imagination. So our imagination response happens first, and as the event approaches, we form the tension response right before the event happens. And after the event happens, we immediately form reaction response, which is a quick and dirty assessment of the outcome, and also the prediction response, which predicts, which evaluates our prediction of the of what happened. And after maybe a few seconds, when our conscious thought comes back, it arises the appraisal response, where which refers to a thoughtful assessment of the outcome. So this is an overview of the ITPRA theory of expectation. For the rest part of this lecture, let's move on to the second chapter of the book. It's on surprise. So when a surprising event occurs, 2 brain processes are initiated: a rapid reaction response and a slower appraisal response. So here actually we can look into the details of the physiology of the fast and slow responses. So when the stimulus hit thalamus, the 2 brain processes are initiated. In the fast track, the thalamus are directly connected with amygdala, and this is a you can think of it as a quick pass, and there's no conscious thought involved. So this is a quick and thinking action. And in the meantime, another path is also initiated, which pass on the information from thalamus to the sensory cortex. So the cerebral cortex is a massive outer layer of our brain, which is responsible for conscious thought. So this path, this detour goes through the cerebral cortex, refers to the slow track, which is the thoughtful appraisal response. So about surprise, we are going to introduce the most important concept in this surprise phenomenon, which is called contrastive valence. So surprising people for fun appears to be a cross-cultural universal. So we tend to surprise other people for fun. And also, it is not simply the case that surprises are fun for those doing the surprising. In some circumstances, surprises can also be fun for the person being surprised. The observation that at least some surprises can be pleasurable raises a biological puzzle. As for why surprise can bring this pleasurable feeling in people, this actually raises a biological puzzle, which means that As we discussed in previous lecture, the purpose of expectation is to enhance readiness. But the phenomenon of surprise represents a failure of expectation. So we talked that our brain actually are wired, our behaviors are wired towards forming accurate expectations. So this is related to our survival, and it should be an innate mechanism in human beings to form accurate expectations to adapt to the external world in order to prepare us for what might happen. And this adaptive behavior enhances our survival rate. Thus, it actually is encoded in our human evolutionary development. However, this phenomenon of surprise actually violates this mechanism because surprise means a failure of expectation, which means we cannot, because we didn't expect what will happen, thus we are surprised. From a biological perspective, surprise is always a bad thing. Even when the surprising outcome turns out to be good, failing to anticipate the outcome means that the brain has failed to provide useful information about the possible futures. So, from this, this surprise, the statement or the phenomenon that surprise brings pleasure violates this biological law, which assumes that our biological goal is to minimize surprise, is to form correct, accurate predictions and to adapt to our ecological niche, and to ensure our survival in the environment. So, if surprise is biologically bad, how is it possible for some surprises to activate the physiological machinery for pleasure? How can people possibly enjoy being surprised? So this is a biological puzzle, and this poses an interesting question, an interesting inquiry about why surprise brings us pleasure, but not panic, but not some bad habit, some bad experience we need to avoid. The magnitude of the emotional response is amplified when there is a large contrast between predicted and actual outcome. In general, unexpected fortune or misfortune causes the biggest emotional response. That is, low expectation amplifies the emotional response to the outcome. So it means that when we fail to predict the outcome, then our feelings are negatively balanced. And if the outcome turns out to be good, which is contrast with our prediction, then this contrast actually amplifies our emotional response, which makes this situation immediately effective. And this seems to be this mechanism for why surprise actually evokes our emotion to a larger extent than the normal situation where we accurately predict what will happen. When we are surprised, a limbic contrast will sometimes arise between the reaction response and the ensuing appraisal response. The fast biological response to surprise is perpetually negative. but the slower appraisal response might be neutral or even positive. So again, there is a contrast between the reaction and appraisal responses. And this the discrepancy between the two responses triggers our emotional response. So which provides the pleasure for surprise. So this mechanism of contrastive violence is the fundamental compositional mechanism used in forming musical surprises. So in musical progressions, a lengthy dissonant passage is likely to lead listeners to expect further dissonant sonorities. If the music shifts toward a more consonant texture, then the resulting contrast will tend to evoke a pleasing effect that can be greater than experiencing only the consonant passage. Whether or not a sound is regarded as inherently pleasant or unpleasant, if it is unexpected, it is capable of evoking a negatively balanced prediction response, which may contrast with an ensuing neutral appraisal. So we can see from here that no matter our no matter the preceding the subsequent sound is pleasant or unpleasant. If it is unexpected, then there will be a contrast imbalance. Then the contrast imbalance will be triggered here, and this will enforce our emotion response to the current situation, and even the appraisal is not really positive, even it's just a neutral appraisal. So this is a direct application of the contrastive valence, and this also forms the fundamental fundamental mechanism that's illustrated in Mayer's work in terms of how musical emotions, aesthetical experience, and the meanings are encoded in in a musical piece, and how we draw pleasure, we experience the emotional contrast, emotional you know the the emotive response in listening to music. An apparent problem for the contrastive violence theory is accounting for why an unexpected good outcome would be experienced as more positively balanced than an expected good outcome. So, in the case of an expected good outcome, a person should feel good about the outcome and also feel good about the predictive accuracy. In the case of an unexpected good outcome, a person should feel good about the outcome but feel bad about the poor predictive accuracy. So the point here is that it seems that if we experience a good prediction and a good outcome, then in this summation effect, we should feel better. But if we have a good outcome but we have a bad prediction. Then when we plus them together, when we add them together, it should not give us a pleasure that's bigger than the good outcome plus good prediction. And then the question is that why does an unexpected good outcome sometimes evoke a more positive emotion than an expected good outcome? Which means why we feel better when we have the combination of good outcome and bad or poor predictions. So a potential explanation is that it is possible that the contrast between the positive appraisal and the negative reaction is the more powerful effect. So the idea is that maybe we should not add the effects of the two responses together, but to compute the difference, to distract one from the other. So when we compute the difference or consider the contrast, then when we have a combination of good outcome and bad prediction, it amplifies the contrast. And this is a more powerful effect, and this brings us more joy than the little contrast between good outcome and good prediction. However, if this is the case, then it would be a maladaptive to constantly experience a positive emotion whenever one's predictions prove wrong. So it means that if this is the case, if this contrastive combination give us more joy, then our adaptive behavior should be wired towards this combination, which means for positive outcomes, we should tend to form the wrong prediction, which will give us more pleasure. But obviously, this is biologically speaking, it's not the case. Biologically speaking, we should always try to form accurate predictions to help us better adapt to the environment. So this also gives a contrasting or a kind of false statement if we analyze it from the evolutionary biological perspective. Perhaps the only important lessons for an organism to learn occur when a wrong prediction accompanies a negative appraisal of the outcome. So this provides another perspective. Probably we only so probably the punish and reward mechanism for prediction response only happens when we have a bad outcome, which means we learn a lesson from the outcome, and we reinforce our prediction to be better when a bad outcome happens. But if the result is good, then we tend to ignore the prediction and not to reinforce it to be accurate. So this is just a simple assumption, and I don't think so. I don't agree with this assumption, but it provides a possible explanation or an alternative way to think about this problem, this phenomenon. But a better way, a more scientific way to view this phenomenon of contrastive violence actually comes from the physiological perspective. So when we experience stress, it is typically accompanied by the release of endogenous opiates, such as endorphins. These natural opiates produce an analgesic effect that reduces the experience of pain. This is a physiological effect. The body appears to release opiates whenever we experience a negatively balanced emotion, such as pain or fear. Suppose that a wild bear appeared and injured you. Immediately, analgesic opiates are released by the body to counteract the pain and allow you to continue to function. Now, suppose that it turned out that you weren't actually injured, but the opiates were released anyways. The net result is simply the opiate release and the ensuing pleasant feelings. So we know that by a lot of physiological studies, researches, we know that the opiates, the analgesic opiates, the endorphins, give us these pleasant feelings. Okay, so the release or the injection of these drugs actually give us a more pleasant feelings. So this is a pure fact. There's no assumption. We can draw a lot of facts. Okay, so this is an evidence. We can consider it as a convincing, trustful evidence that the releasing of opiates give us pleasure. So from this perspective, it argues that the physiological origin of contrastive valence might follow a path akin to this sequence of events. Which means whenever we experience a negatively valenced emotion, which is caused by the poor prediction, because we failed to predict this situation, this surprise or unexpected condition gives us a fear or a kind of pain, which triggers our body to release these analgesic opiates. And afterwards, when the appraisal response comes in, when our conscious thought comes back, we realize that there's no real danger, there's no real real threats. Therefore, but the opiates already the opiates are already released. Therefore, in this later state, we only feel the pleasant feelings because of the release of this of the chemicals, but we are not really experiencing any dangerous situation and or things like that. So probably the contrastive valence follows this kind of physiological path, which makes us kind of go for it, and we tend to surprise people. We tend to create surprise. Even in musical progressions, we tend to use this mechanism to trigger such a kind of biological, natural response from our bodies, so that we can experience the pleasure without any danger or loss. So this statement of contrastive valence is not a new idea. So actually, from ancient times or throughout human history, many people, many philosophers, and the wise people, they all discovered this phenomenon. For example, in John Locke's essay on human understanding, he pointed out that the aesthetic experience of the sublime depends on an initial sensation of fear that is ultimately appraised as inconsequential. And also, throughout history, sages have recognized that pleasure is enhanced by contrast. Happiness is not so much a state of being as it is a state of becoming. So, the state of the state of going to be successful. So from this unpleasant situation to the final success is something we consider to be the real happiness, but it's not the final result of success. So I believe you can instantiate maybe from based on your own experience or yeah, something you have seen or read. Also, quoted from Spartans, hunger is the best spice. So when you experience this suffering or this bad situation, then when it's followed by some good consequence, it feels more pleasurable than reaching the good status from the beginning. And also, as the saying goes, everything is good if it ends well. So, so this is everything for this lecture. I hope it's illuminating and it's an interesting discussion.